Like?
Yeah.
So these are 5 of our amazing students. I'm going to ask each of them just to introduce themselves from how they came to be at Scripps. And then we'll open up the floor to questions, and you guys can ask any questions that you have, and if there's something they can't answer, I'll be available to fill in the gaps, but I don't think there's much I don't know. John, do you want to start?
Hi everyone, I'm John. I graduated from Yale University in 2014, worked for an education company in Boston for 2 years before deciding I wanted to make this switch. I moved back in with my parents, as our generation want to do, and applied the Post-Bac program, volunteered in San Francisco before ending up here.
I think so. You interrupted my way.
Sorry.
Hello, I am Lindsay. I graduated from UCI in 2010. Originally from the Bay Area, so that's where I was for the last 8 years. Did a variety of different things, from working in law office, fashion startup, health tech startup, UX type things. I've been all over the place, but I decided that I wanted to go this direction. I actually applied a few years ago and was waitlisted, and decided to, instead of staying on the wait list, work on my application, did some scribing, volunteering, became a scribe manager, and then reapplied here, and now here I am.
Hi, I'm Surya. I graduated from Scripps in 2012 with an art history degree, and then I went into the art world, worked at the MoMA, then got an internship as a curatorial assistant in Seattle. In that time, I was also working at a medical office to make a little bit of money, and found that I really enjoyed that. So I switched my path and ended up here at Scripps again.
Hi, I'm Dave Dieter. I graduated from Penn State a few years ago with a major in speech pathology. I took time off like halfway through my undergrad, and I lived in Jordan for a while. Learned Arabic, volunteered, decided I wanted to go into medicine, but it was a little too late in my career. So after I graduated, I went and did a Fulbright in Azerbaijan, and then ended up here.
I'm Michael. I'm from Orange County, so not too far from here. I graduated from Vassar College in 2013 with a major in Asian Studies and a minor in Chinese Studies. Went to business school after that at the University of Virginia's undergrad business school, not the graduate one, which is always funny to explain to people. And I got a master's in commerce there before realizing that business is not a very good fit for me. So after a rather fruitless year looking for work, I decided to go to China to sort of make good on my Asian Studies degree. I worked there for 2 years in education before realizing that my passion was indeed for medicine. Came back, did some volunteering while also taking prerequisites for this program, and got admitted, and now I'm here. So, question?
Hi, so this is for any of you, but I know earlier you were talking about how the classes are taken with the undergrad students. So knowing that and being a post-bac or part of the post-bac program in an undergrad class, do you feel isolated in any way, or do you mostly do the classes together and study together?
And I'm going to ask for the panel. Why don't you start with John, and then we'll move down in terms of who answers first. If you feel like you don't have anything to add, 1 or 2 people can answer, and we can move on. Before you answer, please repeat the questions so those that are joining us remotely can hear the question as well.
Cool.
John?
Okay, so the question was about as post-bacs, and who are in most cases a little bit older than the undergrads, taking classes with the undergrads, and how does it feel? Do we feel isolated? Is that a good summary?
Yeah.
No, I love it for a number of reasons. Yeah, we're different. Like it's very clear. Like if there, when we walk into a room, the professors know who we are. Even if we don't like look old, it's just like there's a little bit of sort of you're driven, you're moving in one direction. Like we're here for one reason. And the undergrad experience is not like that, right? It's built for you to explore. It's built for you to fail a little bit in the same way. And we've all had in all of our usually sort of backgrounds in different ways the benefit of already doing that. So, not feeling, but exploring. And, but we don't have science backgrounds. The undergrads do, most of these, so most of our classes right now were with sophomores, I'd say, mostly. And it's cool, they're like incredibly smart, and like good at this. And it's pretty new for a lot of us. This is the first time we've been in formal school in a while. Or, you know, it's like, we used to have a job, and we used to like, you know, 9 to 5 or 8 to 10 or whatever it was. And now we like study. And what's that like? And it's helpful to have people that are doing that. I also think that it's good that we are, how do I say this? It's good that we're not all in the same class all the time. And I'd say that, wanting to make clear, I really like everyone in our cohort. I think we really got lucky. It's like really cool. And these are pretty amazing people here. But we all have, it's not an easy or light year by any stretch, and no one should really sugarcoat that for you. And it's stressful, and we have things that we're thinking about. We're thinking about our futures. We're thinking about the years ahead of us, and all that stuff can build up in the room. And if there's all 18 of us in one classroom all the time, we're all studying together, all that stuff, I think that would probably be detrimental. And so it's nice that we're spread out. We're still taking the same curriculum. We still communicate all the time. We're on Slack. I don't know if they talk about that. And it mixes up, and I see most people very often. We still get together outside of class. So I think it works out really well. And we're encouraged to form study groups with the undergrads. It helps create some variety. They find us fascinating. I don't know if there are any Scripps or Claremont or CMC people, undergrads in the room. But it's always like, whoa, you're old, like what's going on? But it's like good conversation, and it's helpful, and I find it 100% good. So, anything to add?
I will say this, my experience is a little different from yours actually. I show up to class like very low effort. I look like a homeless 12-year-old. So I have actually had undergrads be like, so what's up? Are you like a sophomore?
Yeah,
Like, yes, I am a sophomore. Thank you for asking. But no, some of the undergrads in my classes are some of my favorite people to talk to, because when you're in post-bac year, sometimes the isolating part isn't being surrounded by undergrads all day. It's actually being used to doing other things with your life, and then having your identity reduced to your performance in school can be really tough. And so in that way, it's better that we're not all in the same class, because then you're just surrounded by other people who feel the same ways about their identity. Undergrads still remember how to have fun and not be super intense and serious all the time. And so some of my favorite people, like, I love you guys so much, but my favorite cohort member from summer session is definitely one of the undergrads who was there with us. We still see her all the time. She hangs out with us and she keeps us young. I think, yeah, she brings us food too. It's wonderful. Befriend the undergrads.
I agree 100%. I think following, I think, is the couch model where all of us are in the same classrooms from day to day would probably drive me nuts after a while, as much as I love everybody. We're not trying to do some marketing here. We are actually all good friends with each other, but like just the layers of pressure that we all have to try and make this right, like to try and get this done right, would probably drive me nuts. And like recently, I've actually befriended and gotten pretty close to an undergrad just because it's like it's a reminder that there is life outside of this program. And it's a mutually beneficial relationship, I would say. I can tell her about life outside of college, like what happened after college. And, you know, she is definitely a lot sharper than I am at times, because, you know, these undergrads, if they got into these schools, they're not dumb. Like, they came from AP Physics, from AP Chemistry, AP Biology. I took biology 9 years ago. It's been a long time. I don't even remember I don't think we even learned the correct cycle. Undergrads or when I was in high school. So having them around is good motivation that they may be substantially younger and they may be substantially more immature than I am, and something. But it's a check, right? Like I like to joke around calling it old man knowledge. It doesn't actually matter that much in the end, because we're still learning the same material, and I'm actually probably further behind a lot of the undergrads in terms of that. And so it's actually pretty fun, like the dynamic that I have between the undergrad.
I think in terms of like the post-bac world, generally when you hear like, oh, you take classes with an undergrad, it tends to be kind of a red flag because there are so many programs that really are just like, yes, welcome to our post-bac program. By post-bac program, I mean take classes with everyone else and say you're in our program. Scripps, I think, is unique in that like we take classes with the undergrads and it works. And we're not really on our own in this process at all. It's like very much monitored and structured, and at the same time, it's set up so that you work really hard and you have a support network, but you have to learn to stand on your own 2 feet, because ultimately, like that's what you're going to be doing in medical school. And that's why medical school is like Scripps Post-Bac, because it's sort of like, oh, you sort of know how this works. You know the workload, and you know how you work alongside people that are kind of doing what you're doing, and also like when to work independently. And I think being with undergrads is like a pretty good representation of that.
This is also for anybody, but can you guys talk a little bit about the time commitment, like how much time you're spending in class and lab, how much time you guys are studying, just like what the typical schedule looks like?
So the question was what the time commitment looks like, how our schedules look like on a day-to-day basis. And I would say that it probably looks different for everybody. Most of us are taking 3 classes, each with labs. And so we spend about, I believe it's an hour and 20 minutes or so of lecture time for each class. No, 2 hours, 20 minutes of lecture time for each class. And then the labs, we have 2 labs that are every week and then 1 lab every other week, and each lab is anywhere between 3 and 4 hours long. Doesn't sound like a huge time commitment, but we also have volunteering that we do once a week for at least 4 to 6 hours. Some people are also working. Some people are also married. I think that outside, of class, actually a lot of time is spent working on homework. It's actually a lot more busy work than I'm used to. As a psych major, it was all papers. You could hold off and do them last minute. That's not the case here. We get a lot more, we get worksheets, we get exams pretty often, quizzes pretty often. We have lab reports too every week, and those are the absolute worst. I would say that I'm actually on campus between 10 to 12 hours every day, and the hours I'm not in class, I eat for maybe an hour and the rest of it is spent working.
I'd say that I agree with doing a lot of assignments and studying a lot. And the way that our days are and weeks are set up, it's like, for instance, when I was an art history major, my classes were maybe once a week for 3 hours, but the science classes are spread out so that they're all throughout the week. So it just gives you the opportunity to like hit that material more times during the week, which makes it probably more efficient to learn the material, but also has that added time commitment of having to like get to the class and get home, or get to class and then go eat. And then, so there's a little bit of also just the transportation and like movement between places that maybe breaks up your day, that I think is good for both having a break, but also maybe could take away from your like study time. So finding that balance between getting more solid hours of when you need to really be really focused, and then also taking advantage of those times when you're like, I've got an hour in between one class and like my professor's office hours. I better work on whatever I need to work on for an hour and solely an hour. So.
Yeah, it's a full-time job for me, basically. I wake up at 6 in the morning and I am in class, in lab, studying or going between them until 6 at night. Sometimes longer if I have like a night lab. And then I go home and I turn off because like 12 hours is enough for me. But it's very busy. It's a lot of work. It's different for everyone. But it's also one of those things where it will take up however much time you put into it. Like I study from 6 to 6. I could study from 6 to midnight and still have work to do. And it's an exercise in time management and what gets the most resources out of it.
The generic number that I keep hearing from my professors is that at the end of year surveys, the most successful students tend to put in about 9 hours of study outside of class for each class that I have asked for, which has been physics and organic chemistry. I assume biology is similar. I think biology, frankly speaking, is a bit less complex and a bit more intuitive than physics or organic chemistry, so you might be able to get away with maybe 5, 6, 7 hours of studying biology every week.
I disagree.
Everybody's different. Something like that. And I found out the distribution it's obviously different for every person. I think I've been spending near 12 hours on average for organic chemistry. Probably more than that. I haven't really done like specific data analysis. Technical. But yeah, it's been time consuming just because of my own study style, because I like doing the reading and pairing that with study problems. And reading, as everybody knows, is tedious. Yeah. So the time commitment is really up to you, but we do have those set number of hours. And I think Surrey made a point. Everybody's schedule is going to be different. So for me, actually, me and John, I think, have double labs on different days. So that day is just completely gone. There's no way around it. I've tried to find ways around it. There is none. So it's like it's really, really weird, and that defines how you schedule your week. And like a lot of the learning curve of the first semester is trying to figure out how to schedule your week, what the rhythm is of all your assignments that are going to be due, that are fairly predictable, but you don't know which ones to commit to over the other ones. Like initially, a lot of us spent a lot of effort on lab reports, and we found out that there were 10 points out of like 600.
And then we're very low science out there.
It also depends on the person. I'm also not that fond of lab reports. I just accept that for work that we have to do. But again, it's like time management. Our lab reports are worth putting in 4 hours of work every week into. So again, it's like trying to figure out what's most appropriate for you and what's most appropriate for your goals. Like what expectations do you need to meet, exceed, or not even meet in order to get to where you need to be.
We don't all have to do all answers to every question, but these are some sort of important questions just to get into a couple other nuances in terms of like what the nature of the work is. So there's lecture time. Something I forgot about is like sessions and office hours, which is like a thing. I like didn't go to office hours as an undergrad. I went to more office hours in the first week of last year than I did 4 years of school. It's great. The professors here are here because they understand it's part of the deal, right? Like you have 20 students in your lecture class, and a lot of them are going to come by office hours. They know all your names. Like they know you. They want to get to know you. So it's sort of expected, and it's great. So that's like class time. So my OChem professor has like 6 hours of office hours, and then we have the 2 hours of mental lab. There's like problem-solving discussion sections. Sometimes those are mandatory, sometimes those are not. And then I think like it's important to sort of like state 2 things. One, everyone comes at this with a different understanding of what they need to do to be like a person that is functional in the world. So like, what are your non-negotiables is the thing that I sort of thought about a lot as when I was coming into the program in the summer. The summer is a little bit different. The summer is very, very, so we have class every day. Chemistry, I don't know if they talk about summer chemistry. It's amazing and great. We all loved it. It's like you have class in the morning, lecture in lab in the afternoon, and sort of very much into homework. It's easy. In the fall, sort of to what Michael's saying, you can see the train coming, and it's like, oh, a week up ahead, I have 3 midterms. I don't know how to stop that train. It's coming. It's getting closer. And so you figure out what you need to do. And that's a learning process and an adjustment because this type of learning is different than what most of us are doing in undergrad. So even if you don't have homework, you got to do the practice, right? So sometimes your homework is due, but sometimes it's not. You got to force yourself to do the practice. How much do you need to do? You got to decide. And sometimes you got to decide again once you get your first test back. And so working on that and working on your confidence and sort of understanding like what you need to do as opposed to what other people are doing is also part of the challenge, I think. And then also making sure you like you said, for him, he turns off at 6. For me, I work at night, but like I do stuff during the afternoon, and I like my weekends, and so that's a trade-off. I might have to adjust that later on. So,
you guys have mentioned quota of 4 to 6 hours each week for volunteer or other kinds of related things. It's maybe a bit cliche, but I'm kind of curious to see what are the medical or research opportunities with which you've engaged in your time here so far?
Okay, so the question is, we have volunteer hours that are required, it's 4 to 6 hours, and he's wondering what medical or research opportunities we've pursued so far. Is that right? I personally have done a volunteer position at Cope Health Scholars, which is actually, you can choose various locations throughout Los Angeles. I started before I was in this program, so I have been doing it at the hospital downtown Los Angeles, at California Hospital. It's a Dignity hospital, and that has given me the opportunity to explore a bunch of different floors at the hospital. So I've rotated through labor and delivery, antepartum, postpartum, radiology, medical surgery. So it gives you a really wide variety, and also gives you, I really like this program because it gives you the most hands-on experience. So you really get to be, like in labor and delivery, for instance, I was up close and personal with being able to view multiple births and also C-sections. So that's a really cool opportunity to be able to do that. But yeah, I can let others talk about their.
Oh, I can't really talk about it yet because I'm still working with HR. I just got out of Ed yesterday. But I actually came in with a lot of clinical experience and a lot of volunteer experience. Unsolicited advice, you guys should really be working on getting as much clinical and volunteer experience that you can now, so that you can work on other things, or you have the flexibility to work on other things while you're in this program. I talked to a few admissions people at UC Davis Health Conference recently. What they look for in post-bacs is clinical experience, because a lot of times when you're a career changer, you don't have that yet, but they're looking for that kind of commitment, so make sure you're getting your clinical hours. I already have that, so I'm going to be doing research, which is something that is lacking from my application. I'll be working at Casa Colina, which is is kind of nearby, it's like 10 minutes away. I'm pretty sure I'll be working doing neurology-related research, but I haven't actually started yet.
So I think it really depends on who you are, how much volunteer experience you have, how much research experience you have coming into the program. And Dietra pretty much sits down with every single student and goes over like what would be most beneficial for them going into the year. For me, I had a decent amount of volunteering coming in, but not quite enough that I should be doing research like Lindsay did. So I had around 200 hours coming in. So I've been volunteering this year. Over the summer, I applied to a few places. One of the places seemed a little too into their own volunteering program, and it turned me off a little bit. So I just walked down the street from my house and I found a pretty small clinic there, and I've been volunteering at it since, because I figured if I'm going to volunteer, I want to volunteer around where I live, and something that seemed a little bit more genuine.
I'm currently volunteering with a research project at Claremont Graduate University. There's a psychology PhD who's trying to, public health PhD, sorry, who is organizing a diabetes screening program, and I'm helping out with that. Prior to this, I was volunteering at St. Joseph Hospital through their volunteer program, and I spent about 100+ hours in their medical telemetry unit. It was a great experience, and to echo what Lindsay said, is that if you're not volunteering right now, get on that. Literally right now. As soon as you step out the door, Google something, because having that under my belt has given me the flexibility to choose what I want to do. Also, volunteer and research and clinical experience, that also depends on what your priorities are going forward as a doctor. If you're interested in research, then that's going to define what schools you're going to apply to. Like among our linkage schools, for example, Pittsburgh prioritizes a lot of research, and it's, I think, a required part of the curriculum. On the other hand, Hofstra does not. It's a very big option in their curriculum, but the reason I'm choosing to link to Hofstra, and part of the reason is why, is because they don't require research. They're not a research-focused school. I had zero interest in research, well, maybe like 2%. Not a whole lot. So research is one priority for me, and that works out because that's not going to be a big part of my application going into Hofstra. So again, like priorities. And Dietra, when you sit down with her after sort of like intake meeting, at the beginning of the program, she'll be able to help you with iron knowledge requirements.
Nothing to add to that.
My son already had volunteer in our state and international volunteer in medical mission. Does he still need volunteer here in this program?
It'll really depend on how many hours he's done. When he gets into this program, Dietra has been doing this a long time to be able to advise him more readily on what he should do. As far as what he does between now and when he does his post-bac, he should probably take a look at what is on his application currently, how many hours of clinical experience he has. I think the bare minimum that they've been saying is 200 hours as a bare minimum. If he doesn't have a lot of clinical experience, and that should be a little bit at least hands-on, then he should probably focus on that. Depending on where he wants to go to, if, for example, we're all in California, so if you're trying to get to UC school, most of them are pretty research heavy because they're state funded. So you should probably be thinking about how you can appeal to research opportunities as well. One thing to add on to what everybody said about these opportunities, we're given a directory of places that we can look, but we're largely in charge of, after we hear what we should be focusing in, finding our own opportunities, applying, and we have connections, yes, but largely you'll be spearheading that yourself.
I had a lot of international volunteer opportunities too, and I was around 200 hours when I came in. Unless you're like well over that number, and again, this is different for everyone, it's better to do volunteering. And I think it's always good, like from a medical school admissions standpoint, to just see the continuity. So not just a cut and dry number, but, oh, this is something that you care about and you have put time into this for years. It's not just like I spent an entire summer volunteering at this one spot to get as many hours as I could. It's that I care about volunteering and I care about giving back to the community around me. And that's a quality that they're looking for in their physicians.
I can't stress this enough. Like, it's really a big deal. Like, the admissions directors are human people, right? They understand, they've all gone to college, they understand what people do, they do this for a living. The idea of a checkbox type of thing is like generally not good, right? So, quality matters too. Whether we talk about hour numbers, and certainly there's a certain amount of hours that shows commitment, and that's important. But because there's a certain amount of startup cost that goes into getting those opportunities and setting them up. But really, you're selling a narrative in these applications, and that narrative needs to be genuine and real, and it needs to make sense, and it needs to flow from the choices that you made with all of your things that you're doing, your personal statement, your letters of recommendation, your research things. And one of the huge benefits of a program like this is you have someone like Dietra, who, just to your horn here, is going to sit down with you and have really frank conversations with you about where you're weak and where you're strong, and how your interests intersect with those things, and how you can and should put together an application. And that will include saying, listen, there's a big hole here. Like, if you're trying to get an MD PhD and you've never done any research, like, you should really, we're not on the same page, and let's see if we can get on the same page. And that is a big deal, because your application is not a series of boxes to check. And there's a lot of writing. There's like a surprising amount of writing. And it's writing where you need to be very, very authentic in how you talk about the things you do. So we can talk about hours, we can talk about gaining experiences as if there's sort of like almost you collect a video game out there, but it's really like you're building the foundational level of your sort of ethos as what you want to be as a practitioner and what you want to do in this role. And that's really important. So think about it that way as much as possible.
I saw a question back here, and then I saw one back here, and then I saw one up here. So why don't we start with a question that I saw back here? I'm sorry, I didn't see who it was. I think, yeah, it was.
Well, hi, good morning, my name is Tomas. First of all, thank you all for sharing time with us. I found this program through the AAMC website. It's something I didn't know anything about. And so, looking at all the different programs in the area, really geared towards career changers. My question is, did any of you consider any of the other post-bac programs offered in the area or outside of California? And if so, what made you choose Scripps?
Yeah, so I'm not, sorry, yeah. So the question was, did we consider any other programs in the area or in other states, and what made us come to Scripps? So I'm not from California. which is, I think, a driving force why a lot of people come to Scripps, because what I've noticed in California is California is like Tuesday in California. I applied, I looked mainly at here, Goucher, George Washington, and Bryn Mawr. I came to Scripps because I liked the feel of it more than many of the other ones. I liked the fact that it was smaller. Bryn Mawr seems like a great program. Obviously, they have a long list of linkages, but it's 80 students, and it just seemed like I would feel, it feels more genuine when you're one of 17 working with the director, opposed to one of 80. Not to say that Bryn Mawr has not been a successful program, obviously they have, but I also wanted to come to California. It was something new, and it seemed that out of like those lists of options, Scripps was the smallest, it was the most unique, it seemed the closest knit, and it was still going to get me where I wanted to go. That's why I came here.
I am from California, and actually I wanted to get the heck out of California when I was an undergrad, so my undergrad, so I was a professor. But when it came time to making this decision, I had just come up kind of like that. I had just come back from China, and I was not looking forward to doing more moving, more hopping around, as I had done for kind of the last 80 years of my life now, from just going from college to graduate school to back home to China, and I was done with that, and I wanted to find programs in Southern California because I didn't want to move again. So my options were, as far as I knew at the time, was UCI, Cal State Fullerton, and Scripps. There are obviously more. I just hadn't found them at the time. And I decided not to do Cal State Fullerton because the level of support that they had did not seem great. It was essentially, here's undergraduate level access to our courses, like private access to our courses. Here is our pre-health advising office, good luck. That didn't seem great. UCI seemed a bit more involved. I had a great relationship with the director as I was going through the process of visiting and interviewing. But in the end, it's still UCI. It's not saying that UCI is a bad school, it's just you're in a lecture hall with 250 other undergrads. How am I going to get to talk to the professor? And like the amount of effort involved didn't seem great. And the director was great, the office seemed great, but it just seemed like the ratio was a little overwhelming. When I came to Scripps, it's like, oh my God, what are all these resources that I have? Like, there's just too many. Honestly, it's kind of paralyzing just how many resources I have. I don't know sometimes which ones I should actually go to look for the support that I need. And I think the final sort of thing that tipped the scales was the linkages, because Cal State Fullerton, they did have linkages, but it was with Caribbean schools, it was not that exciting. UCI did not have any because this is their second year of existence, and their first cohort has actually not gotten into medical school. And Scripps has this rich history and strong relationships with a lot of medical schools already. So I'm just kind of excited. Yeah, I don't think there's much of a choice.
I want to make sure that we can get to all the questions, so we are aware of that, so we can shorten ourselves. To zoom out a little bit though, there are multiple ways to get into med school. There's tons of ways to get into med school, and lots of people do it in lots of ways. And this program, Get It For All of Us, this program is a great fit. We love it a lot. We're here talking to you about it. But before I was here, I knew lots of med students that were career changers that were doing it a different way. So I think that there's one distinction that's important to understand. The 1-year versus 2-year programs are interesting. You should think about what you want, and if you're going to do an extension program that is more of a sort of ad hoc type thing, where like UC Berkeley Extension is one that people talk a lot about. I took some classes there. Do you need to work while you're doing this? Do you need to work? Do you need to do your volunteering while you're getting classes? That you might have more flexibility. You might be able to do the classes in a different schedule. You might be able to take your time with it. It's going to take you a little longer, and the expenses are sort of a wash because it takes longer, and you have to live, and you have to earn money. I think that the 1-year program, the thing that you are taking out of this, in addition to all the other stuff that we talked about, just in general, all this love Scripps, but in general, 1-year programs, you're learning to learn at a pace that is the pace that you will need to learn in med school. There's a sort of metacognitive aspect to it that is important. It's not just the content, it's how do you vacuum up knowledge and prioritize in all the ways that we were talking about, so that you can do that in your preclinical years. And we have heard this from our friends, and we've heard this from Pietra, that is a big deal. And that walking into your preclinical time, which is generally just sort of, a kick in the butt for a lot of people. The people that are coming out from these one-year post-bac programs, the Gouchers, the Bryn Mawrs, and the Scripps tend to have to already be in a gear that is helpful for them to have success. I just wanted to add that to the additional context.
Yeah, we're learning how to drink water out of a fire hose because it'll be a skill we need. We have a question back here.
Yeah, I do. So I worked at a job in healthcare and I also volunteered at the UNC on the weekends. I think I have about 300-ish hours of medical community service. What would make me a better candidate?
It's hard to answer that without, he was asking what would make him a better candidate if he has a lot of volunteer experience, a lot of clinical experience, and working in a healthcare company or office. It's really hard to say that when we don't know what the rest of your application looks like. I think that the advisor would actually be a much better person to talk to than us about that.
We can talk a little bit more about your specific situation if you want to hang around after this. I'm sure we'd be having some more questions.
Yeah.
I think in general, I would just direct everyone back to what we were saying before, is that applications to med school are a personal process. The choice is a personal process, and it's different for everyone. So there isn't really any one way to do it. And you have to really do a lot of hard thinking about what matters to you, what you have to sell, what you have to do, and work with someone to help you design an application to get that as good as possible.
And I just want to be respectful. We are at our noon time when we're prepared to end the program. I've seen a few hands of questions that didn't get answered. If you have a question you'd like to stay for a brief conversation, you're welcome to do so, but I'm going to just take a little short break here, and if you want to excuse yourself, you can. We'll stay here for about 5 to 10 minutes for any lingering questions that didn't get answered. So if you have a question, please move up towards the front if you'd like to excuse yourself. Thank you so much for coming. Best wishes in your journey, and don't hesitate to reach out if you have questions, okay? Thank you for your time.
We're like all the way from the see our noses now.
I'm actually asking for two to stay to go ahead and kind of see, because we'll go ahead and avoid getting a lot of these questions. So if you're choosing to stay, go ahead and stay your seat, and then we'll work through things.
Can you keep trying to
All right. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started just in this make it time, because I don't want to be more than 15 minutes. I want to be able to wrap this up to respect your time and our students' time. So we're just going to start. It doesn't matter. So go ahead and raise your hands.
So have you identified which programs you wanted to apply to before applying to the program?
I'm going to answer that question. This is from one of our remote audience members. Have you identified which medical schools you applied to before you started the program? It's nice to be thinking about linkages if you meet the requirement, but it is not a good idea to imagine what medical schools you're planning to apply to before starting a post-bac program, because you don't know what kind of applicant you are until you're done with your post-bac program. Ultimately, in a holistic application, one of the most important pieces is what I call the matrix. It is your GPA, it is your MCAT score. And you have no idea what your science GPA will be and no idea what your MCAT score is going to be. So even these students, when they come to me and say, what medical schools should I apply to when they're not intending to link, I tell them to leave and to come see me in May. We're just not gonna have that conversation yet because you're not ready, that's all. Okay.
Just a quick question on like, you guys had talked about picking classes. How much agency do you have in what courses you take and the type of schedule that you have? Is it like,
Yeah.
so that, well, let me rephrase my question in a different way. So I imagine that there's like a few Bible courses that are available in terms of like, you could take this one. Oh, okay.
No, so basically, you will tell, the question was, how much agency do we have over our own class schedules? We don't. We can basically tell them if we want a late night lab, which goes from 6 to 10, or if we're okay with 8 AM classes. And
the other request that we take is the students want a Monday, Wednesday, Friday schedule. There are students that are going far away for volunteering and they need their Tuesdays and Thursdays to be free. So we will look at 3-day schedules and we will look at preference, you get to sign up for your own lab times. But given the nature of the program, this is a full-time job, you kind of show up to your shift when you're assigned to your class. Good question.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth. I just have a question for those of you who have gone and like done career type things for a few years and then come back to school. Can you speak a little bit to maybe the learning curve that you had during transitioning here and beginning here? I know it's been a while since I've taken any kind of science classes, so.
Yeah. So the question was how to make the transition from working for a few years into the Scripps Post-Bac program. So somebody who's worked a few years into it.
yeah, I've worked in a lot of different things. It's hard. It's so hard. I think part of the difficulty comes in where you're used to working 9 to 5 and being off and being able to go do whatever you want afterwards. That's not how this is. Here, like, it's very much your performance is going to dictate how well you do, like what your grade is going to be. And so there's a lot more pressure to perform well. Also, like, when you're working at a job, like, yeah, you may be doing a lot of different kinds of tasks on any given day, but they're all usually focused on one type of job. Here you're balancing, it sounds like 3 classes, but it's actually 6 because your labs are separate. So you're balancing 6 different classes with different deadlines, different exams, and you decide how you're going to spend your time. So it's definitely an adjustment in that regard as well. Thank you.
I agree. Good question back. Yeah.
So this is my personal experience. I was a medical assistant for 7 years, and I've also been doing volunteering on the side at Colina, and I've also registered at Loma University to do volunteering. So from here on out, should I continue focusing on doing volunteer hours, or should I just focus on academics and academic school?
So the question is, I have a lot of, this particular student has a lot extensive volunteer experiences and wondering where to best put their time. Do they just focus on academics? And there's no black or white answer to that. It kind of depends. At some level, you don't want to be involved in the medical community and just have this abrupt stop. But at the same time, if academics is where you need to put your energy, taking a calculus class, taking a statistics class, taking the GRE, do that while you're volunteering just 4 hours a week. Give your Sunday mornings to a community service or to a hospital and focus on your academics. So there's nothing wrong if you have been in the medical field and discovered that you want to take the turn towards medicine. We had a student a couple of years ago who was a nurse. And so he had all the clinical hours he needed, and he focused on getting that quantitative experience to be ready for the hard sciences and for the MCAT, which he didn't have exposure to. So that's understandable. Yeah. Another online question.
This is for Dietra, but so would something such as the Peace Corps count as volunteering if you received a stipend for doing it?
Yes, the Peace Corps is still volunteering. I mean, anything that you're involved with your community, and there are some volunteer things that there are small stipends for. Like we've had students that were head scribes at free clinics, and because they were training the other scribes, they got paid. But it's not as much a matter of whether you received cash for it or not. It's more a matter of, what community were you serving? How did it stretch you? Were you engaged with the community where there's a high need for doctors? Are you a human being that wants to be a contributing part of the world? And how does that function for you as a person? And can you always put yourself in really safe places? Have you made the hard choices and put yourself in a more difficult place? Have you been at a standard suburban hospital with only insured patients? Or have you been in a clinic where, I've read personal statements of students that walked into a room of a homeless person who hadn't had a shower in weeks and who just reeked of feces. And how do you, walk into that and have That's a different experience than walking into a suburban hospital room with everybody having insurance and it's very comfortable. And one's not good or bad, they're just different. And if you stretched yourself in different ways, or found a passion and stuff with it, those are important.
This program, like all the panelists are obviously like took time off like after they did grad programs and stuff like that. Do you also accept students like out of undergrad as well?
Yeah, it's unusual. I didn't think about it when the students volunteered. Thank you for your time. But we absolutely have students that come straight out of undergrad. We have students that make this decision. We have students that come knowing that they're always going to do a post-bac. Like they went through undergrad and their parents said, please go live, study, explore the world. And if you still want to be a doctor after college, go to a post-bac program. And we have students that discover maybe in their junior year that they really want to go into medicine, but they're already so close to getting their degree that it would be difficult to switch majors at that point. And that's perfectly fine. We work with those students as well. We have about 2 or 3 students in each cohort that are directly out of undergrad. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm kind of blind, so I can't see. So I have about 8 years of experience in finance, and it's strong in finance, but I was kind of in that same position where I started pre-med and then I did finance, and then I had to just work. So I don't have, even if I wanted to apply by the deadline, would I have enough time to do any clinical? I mean, I'm part of a charity and all that stuff, but I'm a financial advisor, so I'm not part of, I don't have time to do that, but I can. So would I have to just apply next year, or could I do it?
So the question is for a professional who has not been able to do any clinical volunteering and recently made this decision, can they apply now or should they wait a year to develop that skill set? It's only October. There's nothing wrong with applying now and making it clear in your application that you're in the process of seeking clinical experience, because it's probable that before you get to your interview that you would have at least been able to get started or have made a decision on where you're going to be seeking that. So yeah, we work with those students as well.
Yeah. How many students do get invited to the interview? Is it, how many of the applicants?
How many of the applicants? We interview about 40 students a year, between 35 and 40 for the 18 seats. Yeah.
This is an annual thing.
What do you mean, the open house or
The program.
Yes, yes. So the program starts every May and ends the following July. Yeah, so it repeats itself every cycle, which is hard because I get to know these amazing human beings and I get to really enjoy getting to know them as people and their stories. Thankfully, most of them stay in touch, so that's my hope every year.
May I ask when the interview start? When the interview start?
Interviews have already started.
Oh, it's already
Yes,
started.
we've already had a few interviews and we'll continue to do that. We'll do interviews into early May for April. Yeah, we don't usually get that far. Just one second. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to add on, because it's rolling admissions, get your applications in as soon as possible. You don't want my situation where you apply 5 days before the deadline and you're competing with like 20 other people for one spot. So just, you know.
Trust me, the deadline is like, you don't want to apply at the deadline. We're so overwhelmed by that point. Like, we'll still look at you, but it's much more difficult than if you just apply now.
My question was also regards to application timeline. So I know that you said that there was a general time period, like approximately 4 weeks, maybe when you heard back after you apply. Is that consistent for all of you? Is that just sort of like all across the board essentially?
It's absolutely, this is how long do you hear back? It's absolutely inconsistent. It's just an idea. And it's inconsistent for a lot of different reasons. And it could be inconsistent for, like, for example, you know, I have an important part of our team who had a family death and they're not going to be in the office next week. So anybody that is online next week, I'm not, the final decisions are going to be made when this person's out of town. It could be a situation where a student is very borderline. And so we kind of put them into a holding pattern because we're waiting to see. It could be that we just had a huge influx of 50 applications and things happen. For example, this year, my family and I are going to be traveling abroad to India from mid-December to mid-January. I'm going to have pretty scattered internet access when I'm abroad at my in-laws' apartment, like when I go see my family in India. So I can't promise that I'm gonna be plowing through applications when I'm abroad. So there'll probably be a backlog until I get back towards the end of January. So those things happen. The 4 weeks is just more of an idea to give you guys some concept. Don't worry if you don't hear back from us right away. 9 times out of 10, it just means that we're busy. If you hear back from us right away, you know, it's usually not good news. Don't worry that it takes some time.
We got a question in the back.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, I'm kind of in the same situation where I haven't had a lot of time to dedicate to volunteer and clinical experience at this point because I'm a complete career changer from the entertainment industry actually, so it's a complete 180. I plan on getting involved in those communities like ASAP and hopefully applying this time around for the next year, but how do you guys feel about re-applicants in the sense that like I maybe don't make it this time around and can use the next year to gain experience and all
Absolutely.
that.
We look at re-applicants every year.
Okay.
It's not a problem. And especially if you know what's
How to
happening.
re-applicate. Okay.
Yeah, it's okay. It's not a problem at all. And if you get told no, I will do my best. I'm not always perfect about this, but I'll do my best if you ask for feedback on how to improve your application. I sometimes get overwhelmed with that, especially at the end of the cycle, because that's when our students are applying to medical school and our new class is coming in. If you want that feedback, if you actually want to make sure that I'm on top of it, it's probably not best to ask right at the end of the application cycle, but catch me like July or August.
Okay.
August is my slowest month. If you want feedback, you see me in August. I'll make sure that, you know, so we do our best, but we do sometimes get overwhelmed.
Just one quick, if you have a choice in terms of what, you know, this is a long process, it's gonna take a decade, right? Just like you have to, like, you all just have to sort of like get accustomed to that, right? And now is the time to start doing that because it still is weird. 1 year is not that much of a difference, honestly. And so if everything else is equal, and you have a choice between coming into a program like this with not just the actual hourage, like of clinical time, but also like the peace of mind that comes from knowing that you have done full due diligence on making this switch. It's a big switch. And, you know, change careers once, change careers again, like it happened in med school, like, you know, then it's like, okay, it's been 5 years, now it's what can I do? Right? So you want to know that this is the right thing. And I was in a position where I applied without having that much clinical experience. I thought I knew. And I could have not known. And it could have been bad. And I had a conversation with the editor about it. And she was like, you know, we've had too many kids that didn't know. They thought they did and they were wrong. And so if you can come in here knowing like, yeah, no, I've seen this stuff and I like it and this is the right thing for me, that additional mental sort of energy is really positive. And in addition, it just makes the year easier because you have got those hours. So I completely understand we all do the rush feeling. It's like, I've been doing this other thing, I now have this thing that's clicked and I want to get going. I have to do this thing now. And it's gonna take a while, and that's frustrating. But try when you can to sort of zoom out a little bit and just trust us that like, that helps. And it helps in a bunch of different ways. So if you do or don't apply this cycle, that year could be a really incredible year. Like a really, really incredible year for you. That you'll see it in your application 10 times over.
Thank you, John. That's why we have these live people. So I'm just gonna ask, if you have a question, can you raise your hand? If you don't raise your hand now, I'm gonna be closing out. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, at that 6, we're gonna wrap it up. Jenny, I'm gonna take your internet question first. This is from someone who's not with us today.
Okay, so the second CAS essay has a very broad topic. An essay describing anything that would provide further insight about you to the admissions committee as you review your applications. What do applicants normally write about in this section because it's very general?
They don't, yeah, it can be, that question is just designed for students that maybe they have low performance in a science course, maybe they have some red flag on their application, maybe they have something in process that doesn't show on their application. That would be a great way to say that you've applied to various volunteer experiences and you recognize the value, but you haven't had time yet. So there's no right or wrong thing to put there, but just if there's anything you didn't get a chance to tell us that's important for us to know, that's where you would put it. Okay.
Yeah, quick question. I'm just asking, like, in order for you to contact a student for an interview, the application must have complete, right? With all the, you know, like recommendation letter. I have it. Okay.
So we only interview complete applicants.
Sure.
That is correct.
That's it.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
That's 2. 3, you want to go back there? Go for it.
How is the part-time program?
Yeah, how is the part-time program? It's rare that a student does the part-time program, but it can be done. The part-time program involves doing 2 classes per semester over 2 years, or summer classes in between. It's still very busy, and it can be done, and it is possible to work and do the part-time program. I think the most difficult part about a part-time program is the majority of the cohort is here for 1 year. So in your first year, you really bond with your cohort, and then you have a second year that continues on. So it's kind of starting over again with a new group of peers. That's the more difficult part. The logistical part of the timing is not the problem. It's a personal choice of trying to be with 2 different cohorts. Yeah.
My question is about academics right now, preparing to apply for the program. So between working and volunteering and just life in general, study time is kind of limited. Would you say, like, I think Michael, you spoke about, it's been years since you had a science course. Would you say right now that math is priority and it's okay to just have like a high school level of biology, chemistry, or where should I be spending my time study-wise?
So the question is how to spend their time in terms of academics for preparing. You don't need to be taking science classes. This is truly a career changer program. Get your quantitative skills sharpened. If you're really eager and have time and you're just curious to see, do I like learning science? Take a baby chemistry class at a community college that isn't the same as general chemistry, try it out. But even more so, there's so much on Khan Academy. If you want to just dig around and do some baby physics or baby chemistry, play on Khan Academy, see if you even like it. You don't have to pay for a course or get something on your transcript to explore it. But in terms of improving your application, certainly the quantitative nature of calculus and statistics. Did any of you play with Khan Academy?
I still play with it. Yeah. Supplements my learning so much.
That's me through biology.
Yeah.
Coursera, what was the nonprofit one? Those are good too. And the fact that you can speed up the videos to however many times fast as you want is also really great.
But you'll be shocked if you just Google free online biology course. You're going to get so many hits. It's awesome. It's really, really cool. But to clarify Suri's point, we do require calculus coming into the program. So you do need calculus for credit before you can enroll in physics.
Clarify, is that a whole year calculus or?
1 semester of calculus. Yeah.
What about if it's like a quarter system? Would you want 2 quarters of calculus?
Not necessarily, but one college level calculus course is really what we're looking for.
You can take it online.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter when you take the suffrage of Bitcoin.
Does it matter when you take it? It's preferred to take it before you apply, but some students take it during the summer with general chemistry. So it can be taken after you start the program.
I don't know if it was like more than 5 years ago.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter how old it is, as long as it's okay, I have 2 more questions that I promised. Okay, those 2, great. So let's start here, and then we'll jump over. You can wrap us up.
Okay.
So make it a good one.
Most students end up going to medical school, or do they choose other options like PA school or masters?
Almost never. 98% of our students end up in medical school. I've had 1 student choose PA over the years. I worked with students that changed their mind in the program. We had a student a couple years ago that fell in love with physical therapy during an injury that she was recovering from when she was a student here. And through that personal experience, we worked with her and she shifted from medicine to physical therapy. I had another student that came in thinking she was going to do MD, and her boyfriend was doing MD, and they got engaged and decided to spend their lives together. And she made the decision to go PA because she wanted to be a part-time stay-at-home mom in the context of that relationship. But those are very specific situations. 98% of our students go to medical school. Yeah. Okay, last question, and then we'll close up. Thank you.
So I'm just a little bit curious in regards to like what volunteering opportunities I'd be looking at. Currently, I work at a community mental health clinic that ranges from moderate to severe for the kinds of work with. So my licensing is licensed marriage and family therapist over there. So I'm not too sure if that already counts as part of clinical or what that looks like, if I need to be looking at volunteer experiences for both clinical and research?
It'd be very difficult to explain that question without knowing if you're working with MDs, if you're working with
Yeah,
DOs.
so we work with psychiatrists on there as well.
And so we have a student that works in a mental health clinic at a low income, and that's fantastic. I'm just tired, so I'm just gonna be blunt. You want to see some blood and guts too. Like, you want to make sure that you can handle someone who, like, is a 2-year-old going to puke on you when you try to do a drug test and you're going to be okay? Like, you know, if someone comes in and opens up a wound, you're like, wow, are you going to be okay? Like, that's the thing you want to check, right? Like, you don't want to spend all this time and money and then get into one of those situations and be like, peace out, I don't want to be a doctor. So what you're doing is perfect. Just make sure that you're okay with that. Any moms or dads, you're fine, you got it. But if you're not on that phase in your life, just make sure you're okay with the rest of it. Sound good? All right, well, thank you so much for coming. I appreciate it.
Good luck, guys.
Ini cek.